Hi, I'm Kimber, and I'm an HR specialist.
And I'm Nick DeMarchi, and I'm not. However, I want to ask you some questions about how HR and cybersecurity coexist. So, Kimber, to start, talk to us a little bit about the evolution that HR has taken over the past few years and how you start to partner with organizations such as IT.
I think when people think about HR, they think that we're here to hire and fire. They think that we do benefits and we give them a paycheck. But HR has really evolved into something a lot bigger than that. We're now seen as a really strategic partner for the business, and we serve as an in-between between the executives and the policies that they want to put in place, and actually turning that into actionable steps with the employees. And part of what we support now that cyber threats are top of mind for all companies is how to ensure that all of the employees follow cybersecurity practices and maintain cybersecurity awareness across the organization.
When it comes to protecting employees that are at your organization, what are some things that are top of mind from a overall protection?
One of the roles that HR plays in maintaining security is upskilling employees and ensuring that they have the knowledge to identify threats and avoid them in real time. Part of the way we do that is with continuous learning. Threats are evolving all the time, and employees need to stay up to date on the most current threats and how to identify and avoid them.
From my experience, obviously, putting cybersecurity in place, putting awareness in place as well is great, but there's always the human error that comes in place from that. What do you do to not only protect the employees that mistakes might happen, but how do we prevent those mistakes going forward?
Yeah, I think you can never prevent them completely, right? We're human and we make mistakes, and there will always be things that happen. I think it's more important that an HR leader takes the approach of learning from how the mistake happened and putting stopgaps in place to prevent it from recurring in the future.
Kimber, can you tell me a little bit about what sensitive data is very important for HR to protect and why?
From an HR perspective, the most important data for us to protect is the employee data. We hold everybody's personal information, and we make it a priority to make sure that it's safe. And we also ensure that the way that we're protecting people's data aligns with local compliance regulations, like GDPR or HIPAA. So we work really closely with IT to figure out how to protect the data that we have and what access to give employees. And who can have access to the data that we're responsible to hold.
So talk to me about what might be a ramification if that data gets out to the public, to someone looking to do something wrong with it, anything along those lines.
There's a lot of things that could happen. The major thing that could happen is our employees can be at risk for identity theft. We house the information that would allow somebody to pretend that they were you. We have your social security number, your birthday, your home address, who your wife is, and your kids are. We have everything. So the biggest threat would be that somebody would steal your identity.
Yeah, and you had talked to me a little bit about the access control and when it comes to them being onboarded and even throughout their life cycle as an employee. Why is that important for you all to protect?
Whenever we look at who's getting access to what, we take the approach of what access you need to perform your job. Everybody wants access to the information, but I think our responsibility is to determine who actually needs access to what. We determine that whenever we onboard people or when we define the role. We say what you're going to need, but it's very limited to the scope of what information do you actually need to do your job. And that's how we determine who we're going to grant access to.
So when it comes to cybersecurity awareness and any training that comes along with it, how do you partner with IT on that?
I think a lot of what IT really tells us what to teach on, because sometimes we don't know, right? Like, we know how to construct a training and how to give a training and how to facilitate a training, but we don't always know what the biggest cybersecurity risks are. And we need IT to tell us what risks should be top of mind, what risks they're seeing happening to other people or other companies, and helping us come up with the content that we should be training on.
So how do you build that partnership with IT? And if you've had success with that or struggles with that, I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
The biggest thing, I think, for any department that's working with HR is to have an open line of communication. HR really acts as a facilitator for communication within the organization. We know how easy it is for things to get lost in translation when departments are busy or siloed, and HR really acts as that center point of knowledge and source of truth. And we collect all of the pieces of information of what's happening with every other department, and we align an organizational policy, procedure, or practice around all of this incoming information that we're receiving. So that's the best way for us to work with IT, is just to keep a really open line of communication, them to tell us what they're seeing in the market, us to tell us what maybe some of our HR network is doing for their companies, and just be sure that like we're communicating with each other and both filling our part of cybersecurity awareness.
Kimber, talk to me a little bit about the collaboration that happens between IT and HR in terms of cybersecurity.
I think both teams play their own role in staying on top of cybersecurity within an organization. A good HR team will proactively go to IT and make sure that the safeguards are in place that need to be there to protect the data. But if you're in IT, you don't have to wait for HR to come to you. You can also proactively go to your HR team and partner with them to set up the safeguards that are necessary.
You had mentioned earlier that when something does happen, despite all the safeguards that you and IT might put in place to prevent that from happening, that you take an information first approach to understanding what happened, how it happened, and maybe who is at fault or anything along those lines. Can you talk to me a little bit about what your role is with that and how you would work with IT to get that information together?
I think this is probably HR's most important role when it comes to cybersecurity. It's really important that we foster a culture of open communication within the company. Employees need to feel comfortable coming to their manager or to HR and saying, I think I did something bad. The speed of the incident reporting, like knowing how quickly something happened after it happened, can mean the difference between a minor incident and a major exposure for our company. So employees need to feel confident that they can report to somebody that this happened and it can be investigated, and that it's not going to be retaliation against them. There's going to be no punitive action. Like, we're really going to approach it from the perspective of, let's figure out what happened, let's fix it, let's protect the company, and let's then figure out what we can do to prevent it from happening again.
Awesome. Kimber, thank you very much for your time today. I know I learned a lot about the relationship within HR and IT, and it was very helpful to learn from you and be able to partner with you going forward. Thanks. If you want to learn more about this, go to Coro.net.